some people say you're going to need a lot of nanotech to reverse the damage that's caused because there are a lot of problems still facing cryonics. A lot of people ask about financials. You know, how much does it cost? You know, it's accessible into millionaires. Now, these figures here are for CI. Cryonics Institute has lower fees than Alcor for the reason that Alcor essentially has a lot more outgoings than CI. CI has a policy of owning its own property, owning all its own kit, and the staff work on a volunteer basis. They literally have the running costs of the cryonics facility itself, and essentially the costs of liquid nitrogen, which is paid for obviously by people's suspension fees and their donations for those who make donations. In the case of CI, there are three options really, which are usually viewed as two options, because these ones both amount to $35,000 in total. It's quite simple, either $1,250 one-off fee, and then you don't pay any other membership fees. But there's a $28,000 fee payable when you die, or alternately $120 per year or $35 per quarter, and it's $35,000 when you die. Most people find that it is most amenable to pay that cryopreservation fee via life insurance, because it pays out when you need it most. It's ironic really that life insurance is called such, because it's usually in the rest of mortal culture, as I like to think of most of the world. It's kind of a death insurance really, because you know, how's that a life insurance? I only get it when I'm dead and I can't spend it. But in the case of using it for funding a cryopreservation, it actually is a matter of you know, that money will be what pays for me to stay alive. I am young and healthy. My life insurance policy costs me £6 per month. I do not feel that that's a hardship. The policy pays out £100,000 sterling, primarily for the reason that was the smallest policy they would do me. As you can see, even with the dwindling exchange rate, that overfunds by a very long way. I'm perfectly happy with that situation personally, because it means that the excess funds can be used for transport, paying the undertaker who arranges the transport, and also any extra expenses that may be incurred. And beyond that, even if it's frankly not used for my cryopreservation, if the balance of that money goes into the CI slush fund, as it were, then that money is being used in the research and development and promoting cryonics as a whole. And we're all in this boat together. One of the reasons I'm here giving this talk today is because I firmly believe that if somebody doesn't want to die, they shouldn't kind of go through their life and die without realising there's actually a possible technology which may help them to avoid that. And another reason is actually selfish. The more people who are engaged in cryonics and furthering that cause, obviously the stronger that cause becomes. And this is a slow and steady thing. The majority of humanity is living in a closed, blinkered world wherein what they are given at the start of life is their lot for life. They don't think they can improve themselves beyond a very mediocre level. They have no transhumanist aspirations, and they don't even think about the possibility of living forever. That makes things difficult for us in some ways, because of, you know, the simple practical issues that come up with autopsies, relatives trying to throw a spanner in the works, laws being inconvenient. In France, cryonics is illegal. In British Columbia, cryonics is illegal. Other countries don't have laws specific to cryonics. However, sometimes laws will work in favour of cryonics, sometimes they will work against it. The people who are objecting, a lot of it is on religious and philosophical considerations. Sometimes that will be simply as much as not having thought about it, and that death is the normal, accepted thing to do. Now, I don't think it's a very fun thing to do because I enjoy life. I think that life is good. I think that there are a lot of possibilities in the future, and I want to be around to enjoy them. However, it seems that for the time being we are living on a planet with close on 7 billion suicidal maniacs. And I do incidentally view it as a kind of passive suicide. You'll be familiar with the various issues regarding euthanasia and active euthanasia versus passive euthanasia, wherein active euthanasia involves the taking of a lethal injection, and passive euthanasia simply the abstention from potentially life-saving treatments. But wait a minute, cryonics is a potentially life-saving treatment. So does that mean that those who are arguing against cryonics are actually kind of advocating passive euthanasia for everybody? It seems the case to me, but anyway, philosophical problems. People say, what about continuity of consciousness? That's a big one. Well, surely, you know, even if they biologically bring the machine that is the body back to a point of functioning, surely that's just somebody who's like me. That's not really me. I died a long time ago. And especially with all the damage that may have occurred due to autopsies or ischemic damage, freezing damage, and that's going to have to be repaired with nanotech. How is that the same person? Well, to those people who argue the continuity of consciousness is required, personally, I ask them if they've ever been unconscious. Because if so, they lost continuity of consciousness right there. And frankly, is there anybody in the room here who's ever fallen asleep? You lost consciousness there. Continuity of consciousness is clearly not required for identity. Or if it is, then you people that I'm speaking to here today aren't the same people as you were yesterday. Those people died and you're new people today. I'm the same person because I pulled an all-nighter last night. So I'm twice as old as everybody here, if that argument's correct. A lot of people say, what about the soul? And what about God's will? Those people often tend to give those same two considerations. I'm not a religious believer myself. However, I recognise that very many people, including transhumanists, including cryonicists, are religious believers. It's interesting that possibly religious believers may be in the minority in such a group because obviously a lot of transhumanism will tend to seem initially antithetical to organised religions because it's promoting materialism and essentially developments that seem against what most good Christians or good Muslims or good Jews, whatever religion, insert the category there, believe and do. Yet, when it comes down to it, most of the religious chronicists that I've heard from on this topic, they'll tend to say, well, actually life is a gift from God. Even I think it's in Jewish tradition that the body should be preserved as well as possible to facilitate the resurrection. There are nods to that within Christian and Muslim thinking as well. Now, obviously cryonics is not forbidden in any of the mainstream holy books. There is no 11th commandment saying thou shalt not cryopreserve. And essentially it will come down to a fact of if God thinks it's wrong, then chances are that religious believer was not aware of that, was doing it on their best faith judgment, and simply endeavouring to do the best with the free will that they were given. With regards to the soul, what happens to your soul in the meantime while you're cryopreserved? You know, is it hovering in some limbo state? Well, frankly, again, personally, I don't believe in such a thing as a soul, not especially as defined by major religions anyway. Yet, if we're to take, for the sake of argument, that there is such a thing as a soul in the very literal sense as described in the main Judeo-Christian teachings, or even for that matter, the Eastern religions, then either that soul will be taken away into heaven. That's one possibility. That's not usually